Hey there guys. So today I wanted to make this video as a message to the new soldiers of the US Army, today's generation. So anyways, you might have to bear with me a little bit on this. I have to kind of go back a little bit in my past. I joined the Army in November 2000. I went active Army. As a young soldier back then, and I'm not saying it was, tougher than any of the old guys, or, I'm not, I don't want to talk about war stories because everybody's got war stories, and, if you've been there in combat with people and someone tells a war story, they always exaggerate or sometimes just flat out lie about the facts. And I've seen a lot, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I was an 88 Mike, driving, sometimes 7 days a week in Iraq, early in the war, early in the insurgency, going back again, same thing. First time driving 915s, second time driving PLSs, LHSs, and then on a head team. The third time I was a head NCOIC and still driving PLSs. And by the way, these are all my pictures here that are popping up on the screen. So anyways, my first duty station was Fort Stewart. I went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. My job training was at Fort Bliss, and it was rough. In my opinion, it was really rough. My mind got whipped into shape, but I embraced the military. I embraced it. It was something I was fascinated with since I was a child. I've had family, in the military. I used to be fascinated by going and looking at the pictures of family members that were in the Marines or the Army in different past wars. So I was always fascinated with war, history, ancient militaries, and stuff like that. And I always told myself, try the military, try the Army. If you like it, stay. If you don't, get out after a few years. Well, in the end, I ended up doing 15 years active. I'm in the reserves for about 16 years active, sorry. And I'm a reservist now. But, it was tough. When I came in, it was tough. When I went through basic, I remember like 30% of the people didn't make it. It was before the war, so, it was the smallest the Army had been in a while. So if they didn't want you, you just didn't make it. The standards were high, and they didn't move them for anybody. And I went through basic training. It was a real bad snowstorm when I went. It was freezing cold, so I trained and lived in that cold environment. And I made it through. Then I ended up going to Bliss, and it was all male, just like my basic training. So the standards were just high. The standards were a lot higher, and they could train us a lot harder. No offense, I'm not dogging females, but they just trained us harder, as opposed to when we went into class where it was co-ed. They just didn't treat us as harshly or treat us as roughly as they did when it was all male circumstances. So anyways, I picked up a lot of good training. I came out a machine. Like I said, I embraced the military. I embraced it, and I was happy to be a part of it. Then I go to Fort Stewart, and back then the NCOs, they treated us, not so great. The NCOs, I didn't get a counseling statement, and it wasn't negative, just a monthly counseling statement. So I'd been in the Army about 6 to 7 years. They didn't do it. The NCOs didn't do anything with us. But they used us and bragged, "Oh, this is my workhorse. Oh, this guy's fast. This guy." They kind of used us as competition. "Oh, I got the best soldier in the platoon, or I got the best soldier in the company." But they treated us harsh. They threw us out in the motor pools, and they just left us there. Back then, they didn't care if you drank water or if you ate. They just kind of abandoned you out there. But what happened, being abandoned out in the motor pool, was I started learning about the vehicles. Back then you didn't have to have a license. It wasn't a big deal like it is now. You could jump in a vehicle and experiment with it in the motor pool. I'm not saying we're driving around without licenses outside or anything. But I got in there and I started learning about the vehicles. Then I I started going on missions. Back then you didn't have TC, you just went out alone. And we went to the field a lot. We went to the field every month, sometimes the entire month. I went to NTC, also from Fort Stewart. So anyways, I ended up going to Germany after Stewart. But Stewart, we trained hard. We were constantly in the field, in that hot, swampy environments of Georgia. I went to NTC, got that desert environment, and it was harsh. NTC didn't have nothing back then. The most we had was magazines. I had an actual CD player. And, it was just a harsh standard of living compared to now. And so I got trained well. The NCOs, the PT, everybody was a PT stud, basically. So I'm picking up all these little traits along the way, all these little skills, but I don't know it. That was the funniest thing. This is something that I tell all my soldiers. So I'm doing all this training, train. I'm getting good with my weapon, good at PT. I'm learning my vehicles. I'm getting good with the vehicles, and I go to Germany, and they're like, yeah, when you go to Germany, you're gonna drive. When they said drive, I had no clue. I ended up in a 915 unit, driving mail all over Germany, and I was even driving into the Netherlands and Belgium. And back then, I didn't have a TC. Just a little young soldier. I didn't even know how to drive on the freeways in my hometown in Texas. But I'm over here driving on the Autobahns in the 18-wheeler. Shortly after I get to Germany. I didn't have a TC, nothing. And I'm, driving all alone in the middle of the night. These crazy hours. Anywhere from 3 to 7 days a week. And driving up, insane places up the sides of many mountains over there in Garmisch. All they gave you was a strip map, and cell phones weren't big then. So if you got lost, you struggled. You struggled, but you figured out a way around it. Back then they could send a soldier, little PFCs and privates, specialists. You could send them across Germany, into other parts of Europe as well. Nowadays, I'm not dogging the new generation, but I can't even send my soldiers across the street without an incident. So anyways, we do go to the field. We're training in those freezing cold environments. I'm driving in those freezing cold environments. We're driving 915A1, so the minute you hit that pedal, any warmth in your vehicle would take off if you even had a heater. So I'm learning living in all these elements, training in all these elements, and all of a sudden, boom, the Iraq War kicks off. So I end up deploying. We ended up getting there at the end of OIF 1, and the first few weeks there's nothing. We got shot at a few times, nothing major. And then I ended up getting attached to this unit, and we were delivering water. I can't remember. It was from the unit was in Camp Anaconda. I can't remember where we were going to, but it wasn't far away. It was up north of Anaconda. I'd have to look it up because I did get some awards from that unit. It was some quarter cab unit, and so we're, like I said, it's about 3 weeks to a month. And we just had some minor, skirmishes shooting at us, us returning a little bit of fire back. And all of a sudden, the insurgency just exploded. We could feel it, though. We could feel it coming. We could feel the hostility in the neighborhood. And the first shootout, ended up with vehicles that were disabled, soldiers wounded. The amount of attacks they had along the way, probably about 6 ambush spots. They RPG'd us, they IED'd us. That was the first day I saw IED. Small little thing, but it actually wounded two people. And tires busted out on vehicles, other vehicles disabled. So what I'm getting at, and this is something I tell every single soldier that I've had, because this was a learning experience for me that I was able to pass down. Everything that I did as a soldier, going to the field, learning to live in these environments, being good with my weapon, being good at PT, staying physically fit. It applied to my performance on the battlefield. It actually equated to my performance on the battlefield. The discipline that was instilled in us, made sure we didn't run and drop our weapons or panic when we started taking fire. The physical fitness that we kept up allowed me, in full battle rattle with the M249, to fight back and push back the enemy. The physical fitness applied when I was out there changing tires that had been blown out, hooking up vehicles that were disabled, because these were all things that I did either training or in real life scenarios when I was in Germany or in Fort Stewart. Every single thing that I did as a soldier came into play when I got to that first day of combat. So when you're out there in the field, when you're out there at the ranges, when you're out there training in all these environments, I ask that you new soldiers don't try and get out of it. Because this is something that I started seeing, probably 2007, 2008, up until present day. When they'd say Fallout profiles, 85% of the company would fall out. Do you think the enemy has got profiles? Do you think the enemy is taking days off? Do you think the enemy is shamming out of work? I don't think so. I'm sure they're training every day a lot harder than a lot of this new generation. These guys are willing to kill themselves to get to you. And, with these profiles that these 18, 19-year-old guys got, dead man's profiles. And a lot of the companies allow it. The last company I was in Hawaii, was about, the bulk of the company was on profile. And a lot of the guys that had dead man's profiles, 18, 19, 20 years old, were on the company football and basketball team. Why do these people allow that when I have soldiers that are seriously injured or, actually have physical issues from deployments, and these guys haven't even deployed, and it's okay. And then my guys, they're trying to get help and they're getting brushed and swept under the rug and, get out of here, we don't got time for this, or you're bullshitting. That's not, that's another gripe that I have about the military. But what I'm getting at is all these soldiers that are doing their hardest to get out of work, get out of training. It's going to be a bad day when you actually have to confront the enemy and you have vehicles disabled, you have soldiers wounded, you have to push back the enemy, you have to tough it out in the heat, the desert, in full battle rattle, with your weapon, with lack of sleep, lack of food, and the enemy's not going to stop. That's my thing to the soldiers and the soldiers that I've had. Look, take the training seriously. Yeah, it sucks at the time, but it's going to be applied when you actually go out to these environments. One of the first missions was my platoon sergeant came. He's like, "Hey, pack an overnight bag. You're going on a mission." And I ended up going out and not coming back for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I was attached to that unit, but I knew how to pack. I knew how to take care of myself in the desert environment because I'd already been to NTC. I didn't try to get out of it. I just went. And yeah, it was tough. The lack of sleep was insane. The amount of missions and work we were doing was insane. But when I went out to the desert, I did basically the same thing in Iraq. NCC was actually tougher in terms of the lack of sleep and the amount of missions. So I was ready and prepared when I went to Iraq. It wasn't nothing I hadn't seen or nothing I hadn't done before, except for dealing with the enemy. So my advice again, to all you young soldiers going into the Army, I ask that you embrace it. I ask that you embrace it and do your best not to fall into the large groups of people trying to get out of work or trying to get out of training. Because a lot of times it doesn't even matter your MOS. A lot of people would get thrown out on the road with us because we needed bodies or because they were trying to catch a ride from point A to point B, and we knew a lot of the routes. And we could do it fast when we were in 915s back in that first deployment. But what you learn is what you're going to need to teach your soldiers later on to keep them alive or to keep them safe in those environments that we do training.